Welcome into Loftside Bantr. On today's show, we have the Bruins Brothers. We have Sir Daniel and Sir David here to talk about the Bruins a little bit and the hiring of Marco Sturm. We go over the Stanley Cup Finals and where we stand right now. They recorded just before Game 4. I'm recording just after Game 4, so at the beginning of this, you'll hear all that breakdown, and then right after that, you'll hear what actually happened, which we weren't too far off. So stick around to hear all of that. Some great insight from season ticket holders for the Bruins, and then what they expect to see the rest of the Stanley Cup Finals. If you do enjoy Loftside Banter, please, by all means, visit us at www.loftsidebanter.com. That's Loftside, Bantr.com. Email address is loftsidebanter@gmail.com. And please like, subscribe, anywhere that you get your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that you can find us, we are there. So please, by all means, like and subscribe, and reach out with some subjects that you want to hear. With that, we'll get into the countdown and then kick it right over to our interview.
We are on in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to Loftside Banter, everybody. This is your host, Andrew Demtopoulos, and today we do a whole lot of NHL, including the Stanley Cup Finals, and we're going to dabble with the Bruins a little bit and kind of go over what we've seen, especially after hiring new head coach, the 30th head coach in Bruins history, Marco Sturm. I'd like to welcome in the Boston Bruins brothers, Sir Daniel and Sir David, who are here to give their expertise. Mr. Dan, how are you today?
Good, and I disagree with everything that my brother says.
And David, I'm assuming...
I'm fantastic, and I agree he disagrees with everything I say.
And we're off to a great start. All right. So, again, you're my hockey experts. Realistically, you're the experts at anything I need you to do because you hop on and you just talk about whatever I need to. So I thank you very much for that. Now, we can start...
A lot of opinions.
Right.
Andrew.
Right.
A lot of opinions.
So we can talk about the Bruins a little bit to start off with. We'll get into the Stanley Cup Finals in a little bit, but as Dan and I have talked about before with the Bruins, David, I'm interested to hear your thoughts at the end of the season, where you felt the Bruins are, and then we'll kind of update everybody as we go along. But David, we'll get your opinion first. What was wrong with the Bruins this year besides everything?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. Everything was wrong with them. You can't blame it on injuries. Every team has them. You know, yes, they were missing some key players, you know, McAvoy being out, stuff like that toward the end. It just really seemed like the passion wasn't there with the players, and that they were playing out the spring, and that they were collecting a paycheck. And I don't know if that was the voice from the room as with the coach, if it was losing Marchand as their captain, or what. It just seemed like they were playing heartless hockey at the end of the year.
Now, Dan, we'll include you back in on this one. Were there any strengths at the end of the year with this team? Was there any positive to take out of it?
No. No. I mean, and I'm talking about after the trade deadline. No.
Right.
I can be positive about things that I think are going to happen going forward. But I think if you were just looking at it objectively, it like your first time watching hockey and you watch this team, not knowing the history and not knowing going forward, you would say, wow, this is the worst team in the league. The last few weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm. David, any positive?
No. Maybe Pastrnak, the fact that he was still able to play at a high level and put up some stats and put up some numbers, despite the rest of the team being a bag of suck around him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it, just a bag of suck. As we had talked about it before in some updates now, obviously they hired Marco Sturm as the new head coach. had talked to you guys briefly about how the Boston media looked at it and said, well, he was the last hire, so he must, we don't care. We don't care about this. But Marco Sturm, where he still kind of fits that Bruin mold with this front office, also comes from, he coached the German national team. He was successful in the AHL. He spent some years on the bench with the Kings themselves. What are your first reactions to Marco Sturm's hiring?
I like the hire. Like you said, he's got some experience both at the international level. He was behind the bench in the NHL, and he was clearly doing a good enough job for them to want him to take over as the AHL head coach and control their farm system, so to speak, and bring those players up. He won a silver medal in the Olympics when he was with Team Germany, so he kind of understands how to coach the international players, and that may be something that helps the Bruins out if we can kind of bring a little bit of that speed and finesse and kind of go to what much of the league is playing with now.
Shockingly, I agree with Dave. I'm happy with the
You liar.
I'm happy. Yeah, I know, big lie. No, I'm happy with the hire, but not specific to Marco Sturm. What I said, if you remember before, kind of at the end of the year when we did our recap, I said that I did not want a retread. I didn't want, and I was more saying it like, oh, get a guy from college or, a guy from the AHL or whatever, which is kind of what they did. I didn't think they were going to do it. And maybe this is why kind of the media has pushed back going, well, this was the only guy that would do the job, was because they said they wanted somebody with NHL coaching experience. Mm-hmm. So they either lied about that or they were too specific on that. Or they settled, right. So I'm happy with it. It was what I wanted. Looking at it just individually at the coach, I heard his interview, or I heard his obviously announcement and everything, and that's always just like pomp and circumstance. Like we've been through it with baseball, football, everything. It's everything's going to be great and like fun and stuff like that. He did a sit down on 98.5 with Felger and Maz, and that I felt more demonstrated what his kind of outlook is going to be. He's more of a hard ass guy. Mm-hmm. I just get that vibe, and like he even laughed and he said maybe that's the German in me. And to be honest with you, that's what they need. Like you're bringing it back more to a Cassidy style. I still have my feelings about if you don't change the top, it doesn't matter who your coach is. But that's besides the point.
Now, David, you had mentioned he coached the German national team to a silver medal, which is actually kind of a big deal because the Germans aren't a hockey powerhouse, or at least haven't been for a very long time. Now, they've had competitive teams with Draisaitl and stuff like that in the team, but, to bring them to a silver medal is kind of a big deal at this point in time, whereas you have, Canada, Russia, the Czechs, Sweden, all those other teams that are more known for producing hockey talent than Germany is. So I think that shows that he can win with maybe not the world's greatest talent. But
and he was the GM of that team too. So
yeah,
he helped put that team together. And that's the one positive with them hiring him before the draft is he can help hopefully pick the players off of their scouting reports, and he can help fill in the gaps that they're missing in the free agency market. And I'm really interested to see how much of an input he actually has on building the team where there's so many open spots and basically having like 7 players signed right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you now, Dave, I had asked you this question in the show that we did. Dan, do you think that Don Sweeney was extended just because nobody wanted to come here with a lame duck GM?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't think maybe that's not the only reason, but I think that a lot of people were turning the job down because they knew. And to be honest with you, regardless of if Sweeney got extended or not, like that's not going to make a difference if he loses his job, in my opinion. The Jacobs have extended GMs before and then fired him like a year later. So I don't think that. I think that coaches see the writing on the wall. They're like, we know your organization. We know you have to make the playoffs every year and you have to progress in rounds. If you look throughout history for the Boston Bruins, the only times that people got fired outside of the coaches in the front office was when they missed 2 straight playoffs. And that means that they only have one chance right here before management makes a decision. And I think it's going to go that way. If they don't make the playoffs, I think that Neely and Sweeney or one or the other and or both are going to be gone.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest challenge with this team is for Marco stepping in?
Serving as the intermediary between like the organization's vision or lack thereof and the players. Because Sacco, like, he was a convenient scapegoat. He was an interim coach. I feel like he was thrown into a tough situation where there was fighting behind the scenes between, Neely and Sweeney's group, the front office, and Montgomery. And then the players, for good or for bad or for right or for wrong, were like, well, we're just like, there's no vision here. Like, there's no structure. There's no culture. Like, what are we doing? And I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but look at Marchand. Like, everybody's like, oh, well, I don't understand why you couldn't do that here. Oh, you don't? Well, it has nothing to do with him as a player. It has to do with the organization itself right now.
David, what do you think?
I really think it's going to be the team chemistry piece, the building bonds with who's there and getting the buy-in back from them with how far the organization has fallen, and getting the trust from Sweeney and Neely, because even though he was away from the organization for a while, I still think he was hired because he was a familiar face, because he was playing when Sweeney was assistant GM and when Neely was team president. So in some way they went with we know him. And is he going to be able to avoid the manipulation of being a former player and having a former connection with them?
I forgot about that. He was the, like, I'm saying it in quotes, biggest piece that they ended up with from the Joe Thornton trade. And that was kind of the first, granted, it was like the weird time between the lockout and everything, but it was basically the first trade that this organization, as we see it now, made. So it's really one of their first players that they brought in. Of course, then they brought in Chara and all of them. But
right.
So they do have familiarity.
If I'm not mistaken, it was Marco Sturm, Wayne Primo, and Brad Stewart that came back. So those were the 3 main pieces that came back, and Sturm ended up having the longest Bruins career anyway, the longest
had
impact.
Been like 4 or 5 years anyway that he was on the team.
Yeah,
I liked what he said. I'm going when he wasn't, sitting next to his bosses from that interview, and like here in Boston, like we know, going on the Felger and Matt show and being interviewed is not the funnest thing in the world. And he was like, look we only have 7 forwards signed. We need a defenseman. We need 1 defenseman. He was not. He goes, I don't know. He goes, I have a structure in mind of how I want to play. I'm not tied to something that I'm going to make players do that they can't do. But he goes, I'm going to have to see what the roster looks like after the free agency period and after the trades and free agency, whatever. He didn't really say the draft. I mean, let's be honest with the draft. It's great to have high picks or whatever. Any player that they draft this year is a minimum of 2 seasons away from even being on the team. And most players don't make the team for 3 years, and then lower players, maybe it's even 4 years. So that's like looking down the road. Right now, I'm kind of looking at next season. So that they said it. He said it. They're going to have to be the most aggressive team in the league in order to field the team next year, essentially.
Right. Do you think this signals in any way, shape, or form a shift in philosophy with this management team, with this hire?
I hope so. Dave, we're supposed to be disagreeing. No, I hope so. Like, that was in tandem.
Right.
Do I trust that they will? No. They've. I mean, Neely's been leading the team now for 2 decades. Sweeney has been around for that long, but been the GM for a decade now. I don't know. If you're talking about on the ice, like scheme and stuff, I think that I have seen them change that over the years, back and forth.
Yeah.
My biggest thing with them is, are you going to change the way that you handle your organization? Are you going to say, Marco, yeah, yell at that young kid because he's not doing what he needs to do? Not, Cassidy, stop yelling at the young kid. Oh, we're going to fire you. Like, that's the change that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, since you agreed, you can go ahead.
But like, my biggest thing is like, is he going to be given the opportunity to change the philosophy of the team? And like Dan said, and if he wants to move on from an asset and he says this player doesn't fit what we're trying to do, all these players that Sweeney and Neely have fallen in love with, are they going to be willing to part with them to get Sturm the players that he needs to fit his system and fit his philosophy and help the team progress into, this century?
And they haven't. I mean, that would be a change because they haven't.
Right.
I will never, until the day that Sweeney is no longer a GM, I will never forget him saying, when he was asked about, they were thinking about trading, or there was rumors about them trading Jake DeBrusk at the deadline. And he goes, you people don't understand. That's like trading one of your kids. He said this in a press conference, and what I wanted to say was, your entire job is to make those decisions. Not to be like, oh, I like this guy, so he's fun to be around, so we're keeping him here. So yeah, that would be a change if they did that. I don't think. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that Sturm, unless they beat him into submission, he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to like take crap. Like take the, well, you need to be like nice or whatever. Granted, that's me from like 2 interviews.
So let's shift gears to that Stanley Cup Finals. Obviously, we'll probably dive back into the Bruins as we kind of talk about this a little bit, but the quality of the play for the first 3 games. I mean, game 1 and game 2 were excellent. They were very fun to watch, and then it was not very fun to watch game 3, just simply because the Panthers destroyed them not only on the scoreboard but in the fights, and the penalty minutes that Edmonton put together were what largely gave away that game. But how would you rate the Cup Finals so far, with it being the second go around with these 2 teams?
I think it's everything we thought we were going to get last year. Last year going into it, everybody was like, oh man, this is going to be a back and forth. They're going to alternate games. No one's going to pull ahead. And then Florida gets out to that 3-0 lead. And then McDavid said, screw you. I'm going to put my team on my back and I'm going to win the cup alone. And then we ended up with what turned into a classic. Mm-hmm. This year, you're kind of seeing just a battle of 2 wills. And like you said, with the exception of game 3, when Edmonton decided, oh, we're going to try and play physical and play Florida's game, and they fell into their trap and lost their head, it's been ultra competitive. And it's been one bounce of the puck either way. And it could be 2-1 Edmonton with one lucky bounce in game 2, or it could be 3-0 Florida with one lucky bounce in game 1. So you're living on every shift, every play, every shot. And that's what we want as hockey fans.
Yeah. Games 1 and 2 were, I mean, that's as good that's as good as you're going to get in hockey in a lot of ways. Entertaining, last minute, like heroics, like that type of stuff. The last guy, I can't believe. It's not like they faced off last year, like Dave said. How are you falling into Florida's trap?
Right.
Every team seems to do it, but how are you falling into Florida's trap? I'm going to be honest with you. Florida, to me, and how they, at least how they play Edmonton, and this year reminds me a lot more of it, was when the Bruins in 2011 played the Canucks.
Vancouver, yeah.
Played Vancouver, because Vancouver was a highly skilled, should have had that Stanley Cup like in their pocket. Edmonton should win this thing. They're the best player like since Wayne Gretzky, like on their team, and Draisaitl's only like slightly behind, which is insane. They should be doing this, and even that team falls into the trap of Florida, and it's like it's amazing. Like so for like a layman, like hockey fan, when you're like, oh, I'm just tuning into this, games 1 and 2, love it, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, this is an exciting sport. Game 3 was for like hardcore hockey fans that know the history and are like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah. I was watching the game and I'm like, watching Edmonton, I'm like, this is going to turn ugly real quick. And,
yep.
You know, you start to see the mistakes, and you start seeing, like, I saw what was a meme today of someone's like, I'm going to break down how to score on Stuart Skinner of the Edmonton Oilers. Shoot the puck. Thank you very much. Yeah, like that's and
I saw one, and it was a scene from one of the Hangover movies where Alan goes over to Stu and like gives him a quote unquote pep talk.
Yeah,
and it was McDavid. It said that it was McDavid talking to Skinner.
Yeah. Yeah, Dave and I
think I sent that to you.
Yeah, Dave and I covered kind of Stuart Skinner, that you get one or the other. You get a guy that's can stand on his head, stop everything, and looks really good. Like in Game 4s throughout the playoffs, or in his career, I believe he's undefeated, and he has a 1.4 goals against average in Game 4s that he's played in. So, like, who knows what you're going to get from him? But that Edmonton team is so top heavy with offensive talent that back end is so up in the air, and it drives me nuts that we just can't get a consistent, goalie out of it for them. And Skinner's going to start Game 4, as they announced earlier today.
For sure, but I'm telling you, the way that Florida plays makes the back end of any team look bad. Especially the defensive zone. I'm not talking a goalie like per se, but the defensive zone. The forecheck is so freaking relentless, and you have to have the personnel to be able to do it, and they happen to have the personnel. And then they add effing Brad Marchand, who
is going nuclear right now. It's like Brad Marchand.
Dude can play 10 more years in the league and just play as long as the Florida team stays together, and he's going to win like 12 cups. It's like insane.
I mean, I think you look at, obviously, he with the talent that he has around him, and he scores the game-winning goal and scores a second goal in Game 2. I feel bad that he was on this team, or this Bruins team, and sucked to the point or got injured and wasn't playing up to, we don't know if we can pay him. And now he goes out and he does all this, and you're like, well, why wouldn't the Bruins give him that money? And he seemed like he wanted to stay and everything else. I'm sure he's excited to have the opportunity for another cup, but he's the Conn Smythe right now. I think he wins it if the series ended today.
He was your pick when you and I were talking.
I know.
Oh, you guys said that. I thought about it yesterday, and I'm like, I can't believe he's going to win the effing Conn Smythe. Oh, my God. And I agree with you. I feel bad. Like, I thought he was on his last legs but it was, now we know. It wasn't about Brad Marchand. And granted, he's probably like lost a step. But when you're playing on the third line of a team, on the Stanley Cup like contending team, it's completely different than trying to carry the offense with Pat Pasternak.
Yeah, they were talking about it. I believe it was probably the Spit and Chicklets podcast that they're like, this guy is just, he's still got it. And, there's a chance that he probably wants to re-sign with Florida now and does all these different things. And they go back, this is their third Stanley Cup Finals and yada, yada, yada. It's just, why can't
what does Paul Bissonnette think of all this?
It's just, I know he and Marchand have a unique relationship anyway. By the way, I don't know if you saw during the telecast the other night, Biz asked if they could stop with income taxes for the rest of the league like Florida does to attract players, and Gary Bettman was like, shut up. All right, that's not the reason that people go to Florida.
Yeah.
And then
it's the weather.
Yeah. And then Gary Bettman basically told him, he goes, I noticed during the whole last series that you weren't really, as a journalist, independent from what teams were playing. So, for me to take ideas from you.
Was he referring to him wearing the Toronto Maple Leafs tie?
Yeah. He's like, can we at least, so then Biz, I believe, asked.
Bettman's such a dink.
I mean, I like his personality. I like all that different stuff. But I mean, yeah, the integrity of who you're rooting for and wearing all that stuff. And again, it plays into a lot of different things, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, right.
Are there any... So one player that has been mentioned to be in a Boston uniform next year was Sam Bennett. And Sam Bennett was, I think he's played himself out of the Bruins because he's played so well in these last few games and in the finals. I mean, I believe he's the leading scorer in the playoffs. And, Bennett is that stereotypical player where he's not going to give you 40 goals, but he'll give you 25, and he'll play excellent defense as a forward. So is that somebody that we think has outplayed what the Bruins can afford at this point?
No. And I'm going by a few things, just because I remember at the end of the year, we kind of did like the salary cap and looked at what they were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And also they interviewed Bob Beers, who obviously works with the Bruins, keeps an eye on things. And he's like, yeah, there's not a player in the league that would be up for free agency that they couldn't, and I'm talking one, they couldn't bring in and then still fill out their roster. So the money part of it shouldn't be per year money part of it shouldn't be a deterrent to that.
Yeah.
Again, I think, and everybody says, oh, you pay the most, you're going to get to play it. But for the most part, yeah. But if it's between the Bruins and said other team and the money's close, all these other things are at play. New coach, the scheme that the new coach wants to play, and knowing that front office. It's no secret. For some reason, Neely and Sweeney think that they're great and the whole league thinks they're great. It's no secret that the players at least are I don't know if I want to go there. And coaches now we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So would Bennett be great? Yeah, sure. But so would a lot of players. I wouldn't single him out by any means.
Dave?
Yeah, if you were top end talent, Boston's 10th on your list right now for a team you're going to, because if you come here, you're going to have to carry the load. And yes, we have Pasternak, but you know what? Other than that, what do we have? We don't have any centers, so we don't have anybody to get you the puck to make the plays and score the goals. Bennett would be a nice addition, but he's not going to come here. Is it Nylander that's up that everybody says we should get from Toronto? He's not going to come here.
I think it's Marner. Isn't it Marner that's up?
Yes, it's Marner. Sorry.
Yeah.
Marner's not going to come here. You can offer them the most money. They'll go somewhere else for $3 million less so that they can be in the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. We're past the point where like you said, where the Bruins name is the attraction.
So I think it's just because of the current roster. Like you said, you have Pasternak there. I think it's because you only have 8 forwards signed, so they're going to be all right, well, who am I playing with? And they're oh, well, we still have to fill in half of the team.
Yeah.
That's why they have to be out out in front of this stuff. They need to like have whatever 2 free agents in their pocket before like during the tampering period and be like, yeah, well, you're going to be playing with this guy, or they need to be if they're not doing trades or whatever, saying Elias Lindholm is a center. He sucked last year because we had no structure on our team. We're being completely honest. Sturm is going to put in structure in our team. He's going to be fine. Right, because right now it looks like him and Zaka are who Sturm thinks is going to be the top 2 centers in the team. Unless they do like a blockbuster thing, like bring in Tavares or something like that.
Yeah. I think Bennett fits that role that you need. Again, he's playing so well that I'm worried that he's gonna ask for too much money. But I mean, again, like you said, he should be able to sign him.
Yeah.
I would even be willing to give him a longer term if he was willing to come in at less money and suffer at that back end. And maybe you get 2 years of suck out of him. But if he helps rekindle the magic, so to speak, it may be worth bringing him in on a longer term if he's willing to get less per year to get him in.
Anybody that comes in is going to have to realize that the next year and probably the next 2 years could be really good and could go disastrously. Like, it's going to be so hard to predict because there's so much that needs to be done. And there's nobody, and I say nobody up and coming, there's a few players that are filling in, but you don't have like these true, like, oh, this person's coming out of college. This person's coming on the team that's going to attract somebody in here to play. So whoever's coming in, and Bennett might be that guy. Like maybe he's the type of guy, like he's a gritty dude. Maybe he's the type of guy who goes, yeah, I'll bust my ass for this team. And then when we win a Stanley Cup, it'll be like, it's because of me. Like, we don't know.
I believe the Bruins retained most of their assistant coaches. Goalie Bob's back. Chris Kelly's back. Jay Leach is back. So, I mean, you're not really changing much of the coaching staff other than who's leading them. Now, they've all played together, and they all know each other. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting a huge amount of turnover, but I believe those are the same assistant coaches they had last year.
So, there's been a lot of talk about that, too. Hockey's weird, compared to when we're looking at, like, other things. So, like, football, you bring in a whole new staff. Like baseball, they actually baseball and hockey probably more similar. A lot of times when a new coach goes over, they do like, unless they have somebody specific in mind, they'll have like some of the staff go. But in this case, I think they should have cleaned house, unless Sturm was like, well, he's bringing in one other guy, I guess. Mm-hmm. Unless he was like, yeah, I literally have nobody. We're just going to use these guys for this season or whatever. Goalie Bob Asenza, like I wouldn't have touched him anyway. He's the guy I would have kept, and maybe I guess I probably would have kept Jay Leach.
Yeah.
Just because he's got like some of the coaching experience down in the AHL too. Unless these guys can learn whatever Sturm's scheme is going to be, you know what I mean? Like, it's tough with the assistants in hockey because you know who like the defensive coach is, but like when Doug Huda was the defensive coach, when Claude was the head coach, and it's like, well, it's Claude's defensive scheme. Doug Huda's just running it, So I don't know if it actually matters, but from a perception standpoint, it's like, yeah, we're going to get the same result because you kept all the same people.
Right. You have the same assistants you've had for the last 3 head coaches. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, Dave, great point. Because it's like, okay, well, and things keep getting worse. You've changed players, you've changed head coaches. The only 2 things you haven't changed is the assistants and the GM. So maybe we should start changing some of the other things.
Maybe it's not the head coach. Maybe get him different assistants, or maybe get him the front office. Yeah. But to your point too, like you said, like goalie Bob, I'm glad they didn't touch him.
Right.
He's not the reason Swayman sucked this year. Swayman's the reason Swayman sucked this year. He got in his own head. he let all the stuff in the offseason leading up to the contract affect him personally. And you saw a difference. You know, he goes to the Worlds and he played like the Swayman that we know.
You're right.
So hopefully he got all of his bag stuff out of his system and he comes back and he's focused and he's locked in, ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, now you know too. And that's like the kind of the going forward pieces of what I'm talking about. Now you know how you're going to have to handle Swayman.
Yep, he's emotionally fragile.
Right. Like Tuukka was
Isn't everybody at this point?
too. It's true. But Tuukka was all goalies are head cases. Tuukka was emotionally fragile, but normally it wouldn't affect his play. Swayman it does. So now you're going to have to like do that a little bit differently. But I do really think that he's going to be better next year. Yeah. Elias Lindholm is going to be better next year. Zadorov is going to be better next year. Because I think the environment they were in this year just was, you could not be successful in it, no matter who you were.
Yeah, I think the quick hook with Montgomery was, at least at the beginning of the season, I think you probably would have been a little bit better off if you had kept him a little bit longer. Now, the reasoning for all getting rid of him and everything else like that, whatever. I mean, again, this front office has made these decisions on head coaches that have bit them in the ass each and every time, at least for the last 3 anyway. You know, this team, as Dan and I had said in kind of the right after the season, they're not that many steps away from being a playoff team. If they can do the right things and the players that we brought in this year can live up to the expectations that we talked about, hey, you know, Zadorov and, you know, and Lindholm and everything else, Elias Lindholm, if they can live up to what we brought them in for, even at 90% of what we expected, this team's not that far off. So, I mean,
you're right.
If Sturm
you get better goaltending, they
mm-hmm.
step up a little bit. You're a wild card team. And then who the hell knows what happens,
right? Especially
in the NHL playoffs. How many 8 seeds have we seen go to the Cup Finals? I think the Kings won it as an 8 seed.
Yep.
So
yeah, they did.
They were a little bit more talented than what you are right now.
no, but you know, you sneak in and you have some energy, and who the hell knows what happens?
Right. No, I agree.
You convinced me of it though, Andy. Like kind of at the end of the season, because it's tough when you're in it and you're just seeing how it's going. But if you look at the roster, they have 3 top of the line defensemen. Mm-hmm. They have other capable defensemen. I know for a fact, just because they've said it, that they're looking for one because they like to have the left-right thing going on. But if they have a proper defensive scheme and average goaltending, they're going to be in that's how you make the playoffs every year. You have a defense and you have goaltending, you make the playoffs every year because you're not going to be giving up a lot of goals.
Yeah.
It seems like they have to do a lot because they have no forwards right now. But that alone, what they do have already, even if it's just like you said, 90% of what we expected, that should get them into the wild card, into a wild card spot in the playoffs. So it's really going to be in the front end what they do in the offseason that will say, okay, yeah, this is a team that can win around or not. If you asked me this 6 weeks ago, I would have been you're out of your mind. But you're not wrong. They're not that far off, which makes me think that every team is not that far off.
Right. Well, that's the thing is we say the Bruins aren't that far off. Every other team is still trying to be not that far off.
Well, that's right. And that's what we're talking about, a Bruin-centric, get this guy, get that guy. It's not all in a vacuum.
Right.
There's going to be other teams that want these same people.
Right. We talk about Sam Bennett, the Bruins are going to get him. They're going to offer him this money. Well, every NHL franchise should want Sam Bennett on their team at this point in time. And, is there, so kind of mixing in the Stanley Cup Finals again, I realize I've taken us back and forth, and I apologize. I'm just not that organized, obviously. But any shot that Marchand comes back here? And do you want him?
0. And no, and not because I don't. Do I want Brad Marchand? Sure. I don't want him to have to come back here.
Fair enough.
I think he deserves better,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're seeing it.
Like Dan's right. You saw it. You've seen it in his play. Brad Marchand, when the Bruins were clicking and the energy was right in the room, would have put on a prosthetic leg and got back in the ice and played. He wouldn't have let an injury sideline him for as long as he did. He stayed out because he was like, why am I going out there and why am I trying to play my ass off when I have all of this around me? And I think that I don't want to say he took his time coming back from his injury because I do believe he was hurt, but I think it was more of I'm thinking about my future. And he kind of had the Bruins trade him by doing that.
Yeah, I think he would have stayed here for his career, but I think he would, and
he would have been miserable.
He would have been miserable, yes, but he would have done it, and he would have been like, "Nope, this is my personality. I'm sticking with it." And I think that's who he is. I think he would do that he would have done that with any team. And is he loyal to the Bruins? Yeah, I think he's going to be like a quote unquote Bruin for life. But I could see him now just do it, like finish off your career where you're not having to be the guy and you're not injured all the time because the load is on you so much, and like fade off like on high notes in your career and like don't peter out here with the Bruins. They're not ready for him. If he could be on the third line of the Bruins, perfect. But he's not gonna be when he comes back. If he came back, he would be like a top line player because they don't have anybody. And I don't want that for him.
Yeah. As we're recording this just before Game 4, what happens in Game 4 and then the rest of the Stanley Cup Finals? What's your predictions?
Because my take was Oilers in 6, I gotta go with the Oilers rebound. They pull out a win. I think McDavid finally finds the back of the net. I'm gonna go. McDavid gets a hat trick.
Oh.
Oilers win 4-1. They get back on track and they go on a rampage and they make my prediction come true.
All right, I'm gonna see. Not that I condone gambling or anything, but I'm going to see what a hat trick for McDavid in Game 4 pays out while Dan explains his.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to go plus 3,200.
While you're doing that, I'm going to completely disagree with my brother.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
And I'm going to say that Florida is going to win it. It's not going to be a blowout. Florida is going to win it by 2 goals. So let's say 4-2, because I don't think that it's going to be like a 3-1 game. Obviously, they have some talent on. I must send Winnipeg on Edmonton. And for the series, it'll go 7, and Florida will win again.
Yeah. Where is Connor McDavid here? You're hearing in real time me struggle to find any of this stuff, but I'm looking at total goals. Anyway, I think this game is a must-win for the Oilers. A must. If they don't win this game, and you're going, do they do 2-3-2 in the NHL, or is it 2-2-1-1-1?
No. It's 2-2-1-1-1. So when they go home, if they lose this game, when they go home, the Stanley Cup will be sitting down in their basement.
Yep.
As they play on the ice.
So I won't ever count out the Oilers because of what they pulled out last year and were able to get to a Game 7. The penalties have to cut down way down on that. You cannot give Florida a man advantage as much as they did. You can't think that you're going to out physical them. You have to rely on your playmakers to make the plays, and then you need a guy like Skinner or a guy like Bouchard on their defense to step up and not make critical errors. And whereas Florida's fairly consistent, and I said this in the NBA too for the Thunder and the Pacers, but where Florida can be fairly consistent across the board, Edmonton's very up and down. You're either going to get a top 2 team in the NHL, or you're going to get a team that seems like how the hell did they even get this far? And that's the thing is, if they make those mistakes, they're back down to, what the hell is this team doing? To where Florida can make mistakes and fix it fairly quickly because they've done this before, and because of all this different stuff, they have all the play. They have the depth that Edmonton just doesn't have. And
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if you saw a repeat in the rest of this series of game 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like Edmonton, as inconsistent as they can be with like seemingly what you get on the ice, like that was a clown show to a certain extent. I don't think that's a one-time deal. And unfortunately, now they're down in the series. Like McDavid and Draisaitl are such an X factor, and I hate that. I'm anti one player can change a game in hockey. They can single-handedly beat the Panthers. The Panthers are you're dead on, Andy. You know what you're going to get every single time. They don't change how they play. They don't change how they play if they're down 3 goals or if they're up 3 goals. And that's why they can make these massive comebacks in games too.
Mm-hmm.
And Edmonton, from a mental standpoint, has to be it's a 0-0 game right now. It's a 0, no matter what the score is, it's a 0-0 game. We need to score now. And we need to play defense. We need to score now. We need to play defense.
Yeah.
We need to not let them pin us down in our zone.
Connor McDavid to score 3+ goals, 50-1. So, listen, I'm not going to take it just because.
But I'm betting a hundo on that.
I was going to say, just put $1 on it.
Yeah, right. So we all know Zach Hyman's out. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is day-to-day. He's expected to play tonight, but again, there's another person on your top line that's possibly not 100%. So injuries are playing a factor, and I'm with Dave. Injuries happen. It's the world. You have to deal with it, and with all the different stuff that happened, hey, McDavid's got to do this. Draisaitl's got to do this, and then who else are you turning to past that? Trent Frederick? Is that who you're turning to next? I mean.
Yeah, well, that's why I wish that, if I'm an Edmonton fan, I wish this was a home game, because there you have an easier time with your, we'll call them role players like it's NBA or something, but your role players
mm-hmm.
stepping up. It's easier for them to do that at home. So that's why I think Florida will win this game. I think it's like the home away thing.
Yeah,
that you got to pick a team. Edmonton is just so, Andy, you're so right. Edmonton's so up and down. It's hard to predict. Nothing continues from one game to another, really.
Right. I can remember in round 1, they were down 2-0 and they rattled off 4 straight after that.
Last year, Dave said it. Last year is the perfect example of down. And I think that's why people, last year, kind of tuned out or weren't really into the finals, because even though it went 7 games, everybody thought it was done. And then it was they came back this game, they came back that time. So nobody's even watching again until game 6.
Yeah. I mean, we've like Dave said, we've seen Edmonton last year come back from 3 down. Again, when you're down 3-0, you got nothing to lose, and you're just pulling out all the stops. I mean, if you pull out the stops at this point in the series, if you pull out the stops at this, do you hamper yourself even more, or?
No, but that's how they have to play tonight.
Yeah,
against Florida, that's how every team has to beat Florida. You have to play against Florida you're at war and your family is going to die if Sam Bennett gets the puck. Right. No, I'm serious. And I'm not saying they're the most talented team in the history of the league, but the way they play is so relentlessly brutal.
Right.
Well, and Dan, you and I were talking the other day, and I said, who would have thought 3 years ago, when the Bruins and the Panthers were playing in the first round in the playoffs, that the Panthers would make 3 straight finals. If the Panthers end up losing that series to the Bruins that year where they had set the record, who even knows that the Panthers are still the team they are today? Them coming back and winning that series has set this tone for like this dynasty that they're becoming.
I think we talked about this on a what if. We kind of did a what if sports thing. These are the things that I'm talking about that people think, oh, well, what if they won this series or whatever? Sometimes these things completely change your franchise, and it might not be a Super Bowl or a Stanley Cup Finals. It's like the first round of a series. The first round of the 2011 Stanley Cup playoffs changed the Bruins franchise. Mm-hmm. They were down 2-0 to Montreal.
Yep.
And nobody thought they were going to make it back because the Bruins never beat Montreal. So let me tell you, Neely and Sweeney out here for, well, what are we, 15 years later, if they don't come back in that series. Claude probably isn't there. Like these things, I agree with Dave. Like, and we were like, why, Florida, you let Florida beat us? Like, you let Florida beat you. And now we're like, oh, wow, they were actually good.
Yeah. I mean, they had the pieces, and you know, when I was down in Tampa, when Tampa would play Florida, it was a huge rivalry thing. They're like, Florida sucks. Florida. I'm like, I don't think they do. You know, they have the pieces there, and you know, the game, the style of hockey I've always liked is that physical type. Like, you're gonna bully people out of your way.
Yep.
The finesse stuff, yes, you have to have finesse players. Yes, you have to have speedsters. But if you put a team together that's strictly all those things, you get pushed around really easily.
Yeah.
And
this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially this time of year.
Yeah.
So. All right.
You don't understand, though, guys. The Bruins set the record for the regular season points that year. So they really should have just steamed right over Florida. I don't care about this Kachuk guy. I don't know. Sorry, that was my Boston dude.
I mean, even when they made the argument like, oh, we were not too far removed from setting the record in the regular season. You guys lost. Shut up. But yes, Florida is a very good team, and we all understand that now. Hindsight's 2020. But now my last question to you guys is, does being an original 6 team matter anymore? Does that matter to anybody anymore?
There's one spot. Toronto.
The team that can't win.
It really is. It's the only spot in the league that I think any of that history like connects now. Because Chicago and Boston are probably like pretty alike, where we're like, yeah, we're an original 6 team, but great. Hockey's 100 years old now. Like let's move on with that.
But it's not a selling point anymore for anything.
To me, I don't think so.
Okay.
They'll always say it because it's a marketing thing, but I don't think so.
And not to cross sports, it's the same thing. Like, everybody's like, ooh, the Celtics mystique. Oh, the banners and the rafters and stuff. People don't come here for that anymore. Athletes nowadays, they go to franchises to play because either their friends are there, they know a coach there, or they get the most money. It has nothing to do with the history of the league anymore or any of that.
They'll always say, "Oh, it's cool to be an original 6 team." I'm not discounting that, but I don't think that has anything to do with like people's thought. And did I say from Toronto? Because Toronto is not even original 6, right?
I think
it was Montreal Bruins.
Now you gotta have me look at it.
I think Toronto was an expansion team at some point, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely off base on that.
Let's see here. Toronto, Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, and New York, the Rangers. So those are the original 6
I mean,
teams.
does anybody like go, oh, I really want to be Montreal Canadian right now?
No. Can't say this.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
Unless you're from Canada.
Right.
Right. Unless you're a hometown like person. I think that probably has more with people than it being an original 6s. Oh, yeah, I'm from Boston, man.
Yeah, I get to put the smoke bee on.
That was more like gangsta, like New York gangsta.
Well, it was just one of those things that it's one of the things that was brought up on the radio the other day is like, nobody's coming to Boston because it's an original six team. They use that, and nobody cares anymore. And I think that still matters to some people. And again, it's going to be your historian of the game, your whatever. But yeah, a kid that's being drafted probably doesn't care that we were an original six team. They'll mention it in interviews, but truthfully, he doesn't pay the bills to say, "Oh, I played for an original six team."
That's what I'm saying. Is like, okay, I've signed a contract with X team. I'm not even saying Bruins, but X team. Oh crap! Yeah, original six. Well, that's cool. Like, look at all this history. I'm not saying that like people don't appreciate it. What I'm saying is I don't think it has any determining factor.
10th on the list of reasons why people are going places now.
Yeah, I want the guy.
It's like me. It's like me going like to your house and then going, hey, there's a pool here. That's cool.
Can I swim in it?
Can I swim in it?
You swim in mine.
I was told I don't have to ask anymore. So
that's true.
I just, again, I want no guy's going to be sitting in a press conference going, oh, I put on the spoke B because it was an original six team. I left millions on the table with the other teams because I don't want to go play in Nashville. But all right. So
I'd love to play in Nashville. That'd be a cool place. Or Vegas. Those are my two choices.
I mean, I would play in those two cities too. The problem is I can't stop on skates, so there's a hurdle I got to get over.
Crap.
There's hurdles in hockey?
Yeah, now there is, apparently.
Oh, no. It's been a new spot.
All right, I do have one more question. So we talked about Swayman and what he brought in, what we saw in the Worlds and everything else like that. If he doesn't perform early on, for whatever reason, shitty defense, bad coaching, is this fan base going to turn on him quickly next year?
I think the fan base already has, and I'm not saying me.
Yeah.
Like the average person that like I talk to out at a bar is like, Swayman got the money and now he's gone. It's like the typical Boston thing. Like we all think that people are trying to steal money from us.
Yeah.
So I think it's already happened, but that's nothing new. We did it to Tuukka Rask. We do it to everybody. We want the next thing, the next guy that doesn't care about money and just cares about representing my town.
Yeah.
Like that's how we are. Me personally, I think that he's going to. I think he's going to rebound. But the only thing that scares me is I don't think that he had a problem with the coach.
Yeah,
I think his problems with the front office. So unless the coach, Marco Sturm, that's job number one for you, is to punch Sweeney in the face every time that he wants to talk to Swim. Make sure those are never in the same room together.
Right. All right, gentlemen. As much as you are my Bruins experts, you agreed on way too many things. All right.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, Dave and I yell at each other about this all day, and usually we're yelling at each other, agreeing. We like put a straw man in the corner. We go, well, that guy said this.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you guys, talk about the same shit all the time, and then you end up agreeing with each other, and then I have to come in and be like, no,
I'm
definitely not the voice of reason.
If you ever want to hear us disagree, we can have a LeBron James talk at some point.
All right, gentlemen. I appreciate your time as always. We'll see what happens after Game 4, and then maybe after the Cup is over, we'll meet again and go, hey, what has changed with the Bruins? Oh, nothing. Got it. Cool. And move on with life.
Oh, quick note before we leave. I think that free agency or draft is last week of June or something. Free agency starts July 1. So we only have a few more weeks to find out what the hell they're doing.
Perfect. We'll reconvene then and how wonderful this team is going to do, and this front office is going to turn everything around. Sorry. Ugh. All right, we'll figure out. But I appreciate your time, gentlemen.
No worries, man. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
Bye, folks.
Well, with all that wonderful interview and everything else like that, we're going to go into what really happened now in Game 4, because I'm recording this just after the game has ended. So what looked like the Edmonton Oilers were dead to rights, down 3-0 at the end of the first period. Everybody had counted them out. It was done. They were going to go down 3-1. You know, they just didn't look good, right? And then from there, they proceeded to not only tie the game in the second period, but then take the lead 4-3 before the Panthers then tied it up at the end of the game. And then in overtime, Leon Draisaitl, again, his fourth overtime goal in these playoffs, gives him the win, ties the series 2-2, and this series is back to being one of the best that we've seen, at least with 3 out of 4 games going to overtime, one stinker in there, 6-1 drubbing by the Panthers. But this is what people paid to see with this rematch, and it's living up to those expectations. Panthers come out flying 2 Matthew Tkachuk goals, a missed clear high sticking while the puck was in the corner. Panthers end up getting possession, getting out to Anton Lundell, who scores the third goal. Then here come the Edmonton Oilers, who the Panthers seem to, when they take leads like this, they tend to look flat. Now, why they didn't look flat in Game 3 is probably because of all the chippiness that was going on both sides. But they seemed very flat in the second period. I mean, it was 3-3 after 2, and then came the fourth goal by the Edmonton Oilers, then tied up late. I believe it was Sam Reinhart who tied it up late. And then, as mentioned before, Leon Draisaitl does his thing again in overtime, just kind of throws a half-assed kind of shot on net, and it went in. And that's kind of really what you have to do in those situations, especially with, it looked like he was kind of being pulled down a little bit, but he made it work, gets by Bobrovsky, and we have ourselves a series again. So this series has lived up to everything as mentioned before. If you're not watching, you should be watching. These are the kind of series that NHL fans live for, and whether you have a dog in the fight or not, the two teams are going at each other. And now you're going back to Edmonton, tied 2-2. It's a 3-game series now. That's it. You got to win 2 out of 3. Whatever team it is, you got to win 2 out of 3. We all kind of hope that the Edmonton Oilers win, especially kind of where we're from, just simply because we've seen the Panthers win. We really do want to see Brad Marchand win another cup. But at the disservice of having the Panthers not win, that's kind of where we're all at. But excellent series going forward, as it's the wee hours of the morning here on 6/13. The next game, Game 5, is June 14th, and will be seen on TNT, Max, all that stuff. So please tune in if you can. But we have an excellent series going on here. So with that said, let's wrap it up here for tonight. I hope everyone is really enjoying the NHL Stanley Cup. Next few shows coming up, we have our weekly Massachusetts Pirates conversation. We'll have that coming out hopefully on Saturday. And then I'm recording with 2 of the most knowledgeable basketball people I've ever met in my life, and I've known them for a long time. So we'll have an NBA Finals kind of State of the Union episode where we talk about where it's at, what the expectations are, and kind of what to expect going into the early next season for the NBA. With draft and free agency and teams changing, everything else like that. So wherever you are, you have a good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time it is, and we'll see you for the next show.